Hi, everyone. Welcome to a special interview as we're breaking down the 2020 Sacred Heart football schedule with the head coach of the Pioneers. Going into his ninth season at the helm, it's Mark Nofri. Coach, thanks so much for taking the time to join me. How's your family doing during quarantine?
We're all right. Everybody's healthy. Obviously with the good weather, it's a little bit easier to deal with than if it's raining or cold and like it was back in March. But we're doing well. We're trying to stay busy, so all good on our end.
What's been the go-to activity that you guys have done?
A lot of house projects, a lot of do-it-yourself house projects, and going to the pool out back and possibly the beach on weekends. So we're staying busy and it's all good. We're healthy, and that's all that matters right now.
Absolutely. Well, before we go into the 2020 season, I want to touch back a little on the 2019 season. Guys go 7-5, 4-3 in the Northeast Conference. However, you won 4 of your last 5 games down the stretch of the year. How do you take a successful stretch at the end of the year and build it into those off-season workouts to kind of propel yourself for the 2020 season?
Obviously it wasn't the way we, had planned. Obviously we wanted to win the last 5 out of 5. I thought the kids did a great job down the stretch, like you said, winning 4 or 5. There's a couple. You always don't want to end on a loss, and losing the way we did at Robert Morris was tough, considering it was the last game of the year, and you got that, bad taste or bitter taste in your mouth all through the off season going into next year. But the kids did a great job. I think. We had played Marquez McCray at quarterback the last 3 games and saw some things from him. So there were a lot of positives to take with the last 5 games of the year, and seeing some of the younger kids step up and have a role in what they're going to be able to contribute next year. The only drawback going into it was, you win 4 out of 5. You had a great off season with our strength and conditioning program, January, February, and part of March. We were really looking forward to spring ball to see what some of the young kids could do. And it's basically in the spring, it's their time to show us, hey, it's my time to step up. I'm going to play a bigger role. It's time to show the coaches that I belong here and I'm going to contribute to the program. And, spring ball being cut, it's a little hard, a little difficult. I know I'm not the only one that feels that way. I'm sure a lot of coaches feel the same way. The only thing we can build upon is that we were able to win 4 of our last 5 games. And when the kids play hard and they play together, they can beat anybody that they want, and that's why you play the games on Saturday.
Yeah, and obviously the goal is to win the conference every year, but the past season, it was your 6th winning season in your last 7 years, all of them under your tenure as head coach. When you look at that success over the past couple of years, what's the first thing that comes to your mind?
The kids, the type of kids that we're bringing in here, and the chemistry they've created, the mindset, the toughness, them buying into the coaches and what we're preaching. I would say the kids first, and I would say too, my assistant coaches. I have some great coaches here. My strength and conditioning coach has done a phenomenal job the past 7 years with our guys. I think our coaches do a great job recruiting the right student athlete that fits who we are and what we are here at Sacred Heart. They put the kids in the best position to be successful. They relate to the kids well. I think it's a combination of the assistant coaches that I got here and the kids that we've brought into the program that's made us, winners out of 6 out of 7 years. And they really buy into what we do and what we preach. And, we always talk about trying to find the right kid for Sacred Heart, that gritty type kid that you can count on in the fourth quarter that's going to grind. And, we've won that way. And if you look at the coaches, they're the same way. There's a family atmosphere, they care about the kids on and off the field. And that's one of the things that we talk about all the time. We as coaches, a lot of us are, fathers as well to our own children, and, we're husbands, and, we're not just football coaches. And when the kids can see that and relate to you on and off the field and they buy into what you're preaching, it makes for a good family atmosphere. And then you put in the fact that they work hard and they're tough kids. It's a recipe for success, and we've done that. And I couldn't be more happier for the kids and the coaches here.
Absolutely. Well, moving to the 2020 campaign, your season originally supposed to kick off September 5th. It's your home opener against Lafayette, but due to Patriot League protocols, as of now, for the time being, it's canceled. So we'll skip over that game, go to game 2, which as of now stands as your season opener and also your Northeast Conference opener. You're on the road. You're against LIU. You open conference play there for the 2nd straight season. Had a gritty game with them last year, ended up winning 34-10. does your preparation amplify or change any bit when you're maybe scheduling or game planning for a conference foe, knowing that in college football, every game in conference counts and a champion can be decided by a game?
Sure. I think one of the things that we've tried to do here is you can't always get prepared and get amped up for a conference game. You got to be amped up and ready to go each week. I mean, the goal is to win every game each week. And we try and instill into our kids, conference game's important, but so is Lafayette, so is playing Stony Brook, so is playing Penn, so is playing Bucknell or whoever else that we've had on the schedule the last few years. And you want to be prepared and ready to play each and every game because the goal is to win each and every week. And I know the conference games are a little bit more, but again, you got to look at it as any game that you play on Saturday is an opportunity to win. And you only have 11 of those opportunities. You can't take them for granted. You can't, because after 4 years, it's over, man. It goes by quick, and you don't want to look back and say, geez, we should have won this one or we should have prepared a little bit better. Our job as coaches is to go into each game making sure we're prepared to win the game. And the kids, to me, need to understand that you take it 1 week at a time for 11 weeks, and you play each game as hard as you can, and you play to win. I'm not a big fan of, we're going to wait and do this differently because this is a conference game or this is a non-conference game and it doesn't matter. No, you got 11 opportunities to play on Saturday. And after 4 years, you're going to look back and say, where did it all go? It went by too fast. And if you're a competitor, you talk about competing. If you're a competitor, you want to play every week like it's the last game you're ever going to play. And that's kind of our mindset. Obviously, going into the season, you'd like to play a game out of conference first, maybe to get the kinks out, to shake off some of the rust. But it is what it is. If we open up with a conference game against LIU, we got to be ready to go. We may have to do a little bit more live scrimmaging or live contact in practice during the summer. Whatever we have to do, but we have to be prepared and ready to go, whoever that game might be against. And right now it looks like it's going to be LIU, the first game of the year.
Well, then let me ask, as a coach, when you have those non-conference games, are you looking to maybe try, is there more of an experimental period in some regards in terms of plays or personnel that you have on the field?
No, not really. The coaches put in the best scheme that they think is going to give us the best chance to win and put the kids in a successful position. And we're going to go out and we're going to try and win every game, regardless if it's a conference or non-conference game. So there's no change. There's no different game planning or anything like that. We still have the routine like most coaches do. When you get into a routine, you're pretty pretty set in your ways. But no, we don't change anything schematically or preparation-wise. We want to prepare and go out there and put the kids in the best chance to win the game, no matter who the opponent is.
Absolutely. So going to game 3 or game 2, technically, it would be your home opener. You take on St. Francis, a game that was probably one of your more exciting ones last year, a 36-33 decision in overtime. Just a crazy game, down 10 to come back, force overtime. You block a field goal to force overtime, and then you have a Rob Denota touchdown in overtime to ultimately win the game. That game really was the perfect example of guys stepping up, young guys stepping up. We talked about Denota. Malik Grant had a rushing touchdown in there. How much more comfortable does it make you knowing that you can plug these guys in different positions and have a depth to really help you guys, no matter who you're going to plug in, who you put in there, they're going to produce for you.
That's huge to have that type of depth and to have so many younger kids being able to step up and play that kind of role. Obviously, with the spring gone, you really don't know what you have in some of the younger guys because it does take some time to develop, and they miss the spring. And some of them take a huge gang, and some of their biggest gangs has been between when the fall of their freshman year ends and the start of their sophomore year in that spring and summer. But to see some of the kids like Malik Grant, you said Rob Denota was a redshirt freshman last year. Seeing Brantley was a redshirt freshman, Troy Holland redshirt freshman. Defensively, Chris Otterbridge had played a lot the year before. Jay Jordan was a starter last year. We had some young kids. Kevin Pepper was only a sophomore last year, come up and make some big plays. But, yeah, it was one of our more exciting games. I think I go back and I look at all the games that we've had versus St. Francis the last 2 or 3 years. We had to come from behind and beat them 13-7. When we won it in 2018, the last game of the year at home. Every game, it seems like it goes down to the wire with them. And, I know Chris does a great job. They're a tough crew. They're same thing. They're a gritty type guy. They play hard, and we've had some good battles with them over the years, and I think they're one of the 2 or 3 best teams in the conference this year.
So game 3, week 4 of the season, you guys go back out of conference, and this is a game that is highlighted on your calendar, obviously, and people around Sacred Heart. You travel to Stony Brook, a team that 3 years ago, I should say, you upset them as they were ranked in the top 25. 2017, they come back and they beat you guys, but they come from the CAA, which you have said time and time again is one of the best conferences in FCS football. When you schedule a game like this, what is, the goal is to win, obviously, but to be able to go toe-to-toe and face off against a team from the CAA, what does it mean for your program?
Well, I think if your kids can go down there and compete versus a CAA school, obviously Stony Brook had been to the playoffs a couple times in the last few years. One of the years I know that we had played them, they had beat the number 2 ranked team in the country that year, which was Richmond. They got a history of winning. They're a tough program. They're hard-nosed. If I want to see my kids go down and compete versus a CAA school, not back down, have some success, and hopefully hang around, and in the fourth quarter try and steal one. But again, when you put your kids up against the best, you want to see them play their best. Obviously, if you're not playing well that day and they are, things could get out of hand. But again, it's football. You got to play the games on Saturday, and I want my kids to go down, compete, and know that they're going up against CAA-type kids and a CAA school who's had success. And if we can have some success against them, that's just another, plus for us and who we are and what we've done, and give our kids more confidence.
Yeah, so after being on the road or not having a home game for 3 weeks, you come back in week 6, October 17th, you're taking on Merrimack. It's the first time you guys are facing off as conference opponents. Obviously, they joined the league last season. To see the NEC expand and have Merrimack join for football, and just last week they included Howard as joining the NEC in 6 of the sports. What does it mean as a coach in the conference to see the conference be so dedicated to continuing to improve and expand the conference?
Yeah, listen, our conference has come a long way in football. Like I said, the past 12, 15 years, it's come a long way. You can go back and you look at when Stony Brook and Albany were in the conference, they were beating some of the CAA schools on a regular basis. And we've gotten better. I know, when Monmouth was in the conference also, that was a really strong conference. And we did lose Albany. We've lost Stony Brook. We've lost Monmouth. But, picking up Merrimack and LIU, 2 of the better teams from the Northeast 10, is only going to make our conference better. Again, I think the football in the Northeast Conference is very good right now. I think a lot of teams in the NEC, pretty much all of them, have the ability to compete with a lot of the 1AA schools in the country and some of the best conferences. They've beaten some of the schools in the CAA, the Patriot League, and the Ivy League. So, to have them join the conference, Merrimack and LIU, I think it's a plus for us. It's a plus for our conference. And I think they're perfect schools that fit who we are and what we are as a conference.
Moving to game 6, week 7, October 24th, you make the trip out to Western Pennsylvania. Luckily, it's your only trip out there in the 2020 season. You're taking on Duquesne, another team that has been atop of the NEC. You've had your battles with them toward the top of the conference. When you have to make that long, grueling trip out to Pittsburgh, how do you not only get your team ready mentally and logistically, but physically as well? Because it's a long trip and usually you guys, I know, go up the day before, but how do you kind of help them become more comfortable even though they're 5 hours away from campus?
Well, doing it now for so many years and making that trip, we have a pretty good routine with our strength coach, our trainers, and our assistant coaches of, when we want to leave, what we want to do, how many times we're going to eat, how many times we're going to stop, where we're going to do our walkthrough practice. Yeah, it is a long trip, but you know what? It's a time for us to go together as a team, stay in the hotel, get away from campus, play a football game, and only have the guys that you're traveling with, kind of connect with them a little bit. Those are some of the relationships that you build is when you're on the road, you're in a hotel or you're hanging out in the lobby, you're on an 8-hour bus trip. Those are relationships you build with your players, and the players build, relationships like that with their teammates. Being together for a whole weekend like that, it kind of brings you closer. We've been doing this now for quite a few years. We got it down to a science of when we want to leave, what we want to do on the way out, and everything. It's just, to us, it's just another football game on the road. And obviously Duquesne's been one of the top teams in the conference for at least the past, 8 to 10 years. And they've got a winning tradition, and Jerry's brought some great players through that program, and I'm sure he'll find a way, and he'll be right in the mix there to the end. So, obviously going out there 9-hour bus trip, you don't think about that. You just think about the game and what you got to do to compete and beat Duquesne.
Can you think of or remember a story that you have while you were traveling or making a long trip out there?
It seems like every single time we go to Pittsburgh, something happens to one of the buses. Every year, whether it's Robert Morris or Duquesne, one of the buses breaks down, gets a flat tire, doesn't start. There's always an issue with one of the buses. So we just kind of throw our hands up and say it is what it is. It wouldn't be a Pittsburgh trip without a bus problem. And again, it doesn't really faze the kids. They figure it out, and they're resilient. They roll with things, and they understand it's out of our control, and we do the best we can. And I think I'm the one who gets upset the most because it throws our schedule off. But everybody's just kind of like, it is what it is. Coach, we'll figure it out. Don't worry. But yeah, it's usually a bus problem every time we take a trip to Pittsburgh.
Well, like you said, it seems like it's down to a routine. So it seems natural that every year there's a bus problem. But after that game, you come back home for week 8. It's a Halloween matchup against Bryant, another team that last year you had a gritty 24-17 win. And when I talked to your players around that time last year, it was the part of the season where you won 4 of your last 5 games to finish the season. The message that you guys told your players was go 1-0 every week. Go 1-0 every week. How does telling a player like that maybe, help them see the week-to-week basis and not look past it?
Stating the goal 1-0, you're trying to tell them, listen, those other games aren't going to matter unless we go 1-0 this week. So, when you win the 4 out of 5, like you said, and you got on a little bit of a roll, if they're looking ahead, they're not going to win the game that they're, playing that current week. And I think that was, like you said, one of the grittier type wins we had. I know we got the ball with about 4 minutes to go in the game on like our own 4 or 5 yard line, and we just ran the clock out from there on out. I mean, you talk about one of the better I think Julius had well over 240 yards that game on the ground. And, I mean, that last drive between our offensive line and him, they just pounded that ball, ran the clock out 4 minutes. And you talk about a beast in the backfield. I mean, he was just – between him and that offensive line, that last 4-minute drive was pretty impressive for us to get the win and not have to give them the ball back because they did a good job. They play hard. We've had battles with them back and forth. I think that's one of our more rivalry type schools since it's in Rhode Island, about only 2 hours away. We recruit the same type of kids, and like I said, last year that was a huge win for us and kind of gave us a little bit of momentum, a little bit more confidence in what we could do up front. And with Julius running the ball like he did at the end of the game, that was great to see.
I mean, you talk about, while we're on the topic of Julius Chestnut, I mean, just under 1,500 yards last year. You go into the season expecting Jordan Meacham to hopefully have a repeat of the season before. He goes down with injury, and he's not 100%. And then you replace him with Julius. To have, once again, going back to that depth, to see Julius take that big step up and now be on the lines of a possible All-American next season, what does it say about the development that he took from freshman year to sophomore year?
Oh, it's huge. The kid, he is one of our hardest workers. And when one of your best players is your hardest worker, that's a good sign for the rest of the team. He's a great kid on and off the field. He does everything you ask. He's great in the weight room. He's running extra. He's out there with the quarterbacks and receivers. In this year, I should have Jordan Meacham back for a 6th year. So I'm hoping to have 2 of the better backs in the conference in the backfield this year for us. When we do come back. Meach will be back for his 6th year, and Julius will be back for his 3rd year. So to have some depth and some really talented players back there is going to be huge for us.
Moving to week 9, it's another rivalry game for you. You traveled north of the state. You go to Central Connecticut, another rivalry game in the state of Connecticut. CCSU, obviously Northeast Conference champs from last year. To have Sacred Heart be good, to have Central Connecticut State be good, what does it mean for the state of Connecticut and to have 2 college football teams be relevant and be competitive in the state?
I think it's great. I think it's great for everybody that lives in the state of Connecticut. There's a lot of crossover with, Mike Cook, our defensive coordinator, was one of all-conference players for Central Connecticut and graduated there. We're pretty good friends with their coaching staff up there, their strength coach. There's a lot of crossover. There's a lot of people who are friends with us that we stay in contact with. And like you said, they've, when Pete came in there did a great job turning the program around, and obviously he won it, and Ryan didn't miss a beat when he took over last year. They're good guys. They work at it. They work hard. But for us to have a rivalry game with Central in-state, and if we're both good at the same time, like it's been the last couple of years, it makes for great football, great atmosphere, and great publicity for the state of Connecticut.
Following that, you go on the road to Staten Island. You take on Wagner, and Wagner was one of the memory games from last year. Not only was it your 50th win as head coach at Sacred Heart, you guys had 8 takeaways, which tied the program record. It was turnover city at Campus Field. What do you remember most about that game from the, whether it was the turnovers or, the milestone for you?
If you remember, it was 7-0 at halftime them. The second half, we made some adjustments. The kids, kind of found their way in the third quarter. And when you get turnovers like that and you can capitalize on them, it makes for a huge difference in terms of the momentum, confidence, everything. It was like going in at halftime, flipping the switch, and we came out in the third quarter and just, found our way, and we didn't stop and we didn't look back. And it was great to see the kids believe in each other, gain the confidence as we got the turnover and just pulled away. I think, I'm not sure if the final was 41-7 or 40-7, but I'm more happy about the way the kids played and the confidence that they took after a couple of those turnovers and turning tide in our favor.
Yeah, and I'm sticking with the defense. You talked about Coach Cook, who's your defensive coordinator. All last season, and even in seasons prior, we've seen that brotherhood, that confidence that he provides for the defense. And I know last year the talk of the football team defensively was you had this turnover briefcase that every time you got a turnover, you're running over to the sideline, you hold up the briefcase. To have a defensive coordinator that has that edgy side to him to, work on the defensive end, how much more fun is it to work with somebody like that and help you guys get better on the defensive end?
Listen, the kids love it. The coaches love it. And if the kids like it and they buy into it and it makes them play better and gives them a little edge, I'm all for it. But it is fun to see, and it's fun when you're winning and you're seeing the success the kids are having and believing in what they're doing. And there's nothing wrong with, celebrating a little bit as long as you're celebrating with your teammates and not individually or, taunting the other team or calling somebody out because, honestly, I don't believe in that. I don't believe in, self-promoting. I don't believe in touting the other team and rubbing it in their face. But again, if you look at, they're celebrating with their teammates, on the Sacred Heart sideline. They're celebrating what they've just accomplished and things like that as a team and with their own teammates. So as long as they're having fun and it's winning and they're doing it together as a team, I'm all for it.
And lastly, close out the 2020 season by welcoming Robert Morris to Campus Field. Senior Day, obviously a big day for the football program, but more importantly, this is the last time you guys will be facing Robert Morris's conference foes. Following the season, they moved to the Big South Conference. When you look at Robert Morris and them being one of the founding members of the Northeast Conference, what memory will you have of them in the matchups that you've had since you've been at Sacred Heart?
Well, I go coach, and Dan Radakovich was the defensive coordinator. They had won the NEC quite a few years in a row, and they, for a program that had just started, they did a phenomenal job getting off the ground quick and building a tradition and building a winning program. Coach Clark's done a great job going in there and changing the culture and had a great season last year. I think he was 5-1 and 6-1 in conference. Again, they play hard. They're well coached. I'm going to see him. I'm going to be sad that they're leaving. I kind of liked, we've had some good battles with them, and they were one of the founding members of the NEC football conference, and it's going to be different. Obviously, it'll be a little bit strange not to have them in our conference, but it is what it is. You can't control that, and I'll be sorry to see them go, and I wish they would have stayed, but that's what they chose to do, and obviously we're going to have to play them in the Big Go, and we'll just focus on playing them one more time, and hopefully we can end the rivalry or the series on a win with Sacred Heart.
So that concludes the 2020 season. It's a lot of competition, like I said, both in conference and out of conference. I want to get a final word on just your overview of the schedule as a whole from game one to the end of the season, and what your hopeful progression is for this team that is going to be taking the field, hopefully in a month to 2 months?
Well, I'm looking forward to the 2020 season, if and when it starts. We still haven't got word yet, what the plan's going to be and how this is all going to shake out. But I'm excited about the team I have. I'm excited about the kids that are in the program that have come back for their 5th years. I'm excited about some of the younger kids stepping up. I love our freshman class last year, and this year's class seems to be pretty good as well, but we don't know yet until they get here. But I like the mix and the team makeup so far. I think in the offseason when they worked together January through March, we had some tremendous leaders with the graduate students and some of the kids that are going to be seniors, holding each other accountable. We talked about it earlier. If some of your best players are your hardest workers, you're headed down the right path. And I think that holds true for my team this year. Obviously, with the schedule, you're playing we're supposed to play Lafayette, Penn, Stony Brook. You got a little bit of mix. A Patriot Ivy League, CAA, some of the better 1AA FCS conferences in the country. When you play schools like that, they're some of the best schools academically in the country. The Ivy League and Patriot League, you can't go wrong with. I mean, their tradition and where they've come from and who they are says a lot about them. And I love playing those type of schools. I think it's a great opportunity for our kids to play against kids like that. And then, when you add in the CAA school's been to the FCS playoffs and it's had good runs, it's a challenge. The NEC each week is a dogfight in and out each week, and there's no easy tasks and there's no easy teams. Anything could happen in the NEC, and then you schedule the 3 out-of-conference games. It's going to be a long, grueling season. And to me, whoever's healthy and whoever's playing the best football at the end of the year with the least amount of state mistakes will be, champions. And I think it could be anybody that's listed in an NEC program. It could be any one of those teams. And it depends on, like I said, how you shake out, what kind of luck you have. Are you healthy? And are you playing your best football, towards the middle of the end of the year?
Absolutely. Well, Coach, thanks so much for sitting down with me to break down the 2020 schedule, as well as look back on the 2019 campaign as well. Stay safe during quarantine. Good luck with any summer workouts. And like you said, we hope to see you guys on the field in just a few months.
Thanks, Dan. Appreciate you having me. And let's hope that we're out there on campus field in September.